Thanks for listening to the Free For All After Party from Fox 4. The best news, sports, and weather is available anytime at fox4news.com. Now, enjoy the show. All right, Mike. This is the first edition of the Free For All After Party podcast. We got a lot to talk about, namely Cowboys, for one. Big news is that Sean Payton is out as New Orleans head coach. He didn't say it was retirement, though. He said it was stepping away. So what the heck is going on?
Yeah, you could tell the Saints owner knew that this was coming just by the way she talked earlier in the week. I kind of take him at his word that he's been doing it 15 years. He has kids of a certain age that he wants to spend more time with. I can't imagine the burnout factor in that job and how intense it must be. Plus, he looks at the reality of not having Drew Brees, and he saw that for the first time last year. And it's one thing when you have a quarterback like that you can rely upon for all those years, and then suddenly that's gone. I heard somebody kind of compare it to, and this probably isn't a perfect comparison, but it's almost like a coach who leaves a college program when he knows it's going on probation. Because they're like, well, they're going to be in kind of a salary cap hell for a few years here too, and probably without a good quarterback. So it's not a bad time to be getting out. But I think part of it's just the burnout factor too. He'll coach again, that's for sure.
I mean, when you look at what he's done for New Orleans, I think he has to think, man, I helped win this city. Its only Super Bowl, which that in of itself did so much for that city following Hurricane Katrina. You know, even when I worked in Louisiana, just seeing the diehard Saints fans and the fact that they have that one Super Bowl really means everything to that city. And you talk about the first year post Drew Brees. I mean, this team went through a lot of stuff. You had the hurricane, which they had to be here in Dallas for a month, all the injuries, all the COVID stuff, 3 quarterbacks. He still led this team to a 9-8 record, which all things considering isn't that bad, you know, but I can only imagine, to your point, the stress factor that went along with this year. Maybe it was the breaking point for him at that point where he said, you know what? We had a good run, but I think I'm done. But obviously, when the news broke of that today, all the attention now turned to this city, to this market, Mike.
As it always does.
Because of his connection with the Cowboys. And how realistic, as you said, you don't think he'll coach this year, but how realistic do you think it is that he ends up being the head coach here at some point?
I think it's highly realistic. I mean, I do think he'll probably step away for a year and get into broadcasting or something. But Jerry Jones has kind of been obsessed with this guy for a long time, in part, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly, because he could have hired Peyton back when he coached hired maybe Wade Phillips way back in the day after Parcells and before Garrett. But he wanted Garrett to be his guy, and ultimately, you know, Garrett stayed here for 10 years. But Peyton's got a house here. He and Jones are close. The families are close. So it makes all the sense in the world that he would end up being the coach here. We can argue about whether it would really be an upgrade over Mike McCarthy, and you know that I have my theories on that. But it's the one thing Jerry could do, and we talked about it on the show the other night, and it doesn't sound like it's going to happen right away. But it's the one thing he could do that would impress the fan base enough to kind of get them off his back, you know what I mean? And kind of excite the fan base. There's not much else that he can do right now to stop that fan base from being really cynical.
Well, and seeing the reaction on social media, it seems like the overwhelming response anyway from Cowboys fans is they would like to see Sean Payton over Mike McCarthy as the head coach of this team. I know we talked about the fact that their records are almost identical, and that Sean Payton isn't, quote-unquote, penalized for winning that one Super Bowl with the Saints, because Mike McCarthy's done the same thing, and yet people seem to harp on him more. Maybe it is from an optics standpoint, or maybe he's the type of guy that would more so, like I talked about this with Dan Quinn, command a room, or would earn the respect of the guys more. Maybe there's that type of it factor with Sean Payton that Mike McCarthy doesn't have. I don't know. I can't think of another reason other than maybe the players would have a little bit more respect for him. And I don't necessarily know the reason for that, but that's the only thing that I can think of.
It's funny, and I don't want to sound like I would be against Payton coming here. I mean, I think it'd be a tremendous coup for the Cowboys to get him. But devil's advocate, the ultimate ass kicker of a coach was Bill Parcells, whom Payton coached under. And Parcells managed to win exactly 0 playoff games in 4 years as head coach here. Did he rebuild the program in many ways? Yes. Did he draft some really good players? Yes. Although we don't know who really drafted DeMarcus Ware when it came down to it in that room. So, success isn't always guaranteed no matter what personality you have as a head coach. But the narrative here seems to be among the fan base that they need somebody who can come in here and knock heads. Even Drew Pearson told us the other day when we talked to him, need somebody who can grab these guys by the collar and get their attention. And Payton surely would have the capability of doing that. I'm not positive Mike McCarthy doesn't do it in his own way, but he's not going to be a guy who stands at the podium and tells you that he did it. And I think that might be the difference between the two.
Well, and I think what people are wondering about, not just Cowboys fans, but just fans of the game in general, so why hasn't Jerry just come out and said, Mike McCarthy's my guy? I mean, if you're Jerry right now, if I'm Jerry, I'm at least making the phone call to Sean Payton and trying to talk him out of going into TV which I'm sure he would be great at. We were listening to his press conference earlier today. I was like, this is like his live audition for TV. Yeah. Not that he already didn't have a job. I'm sure that's already been in the books. But you have to think, too, that Jerry maybe had an inkling that this was going to happen, too, and that he's going to try his best to try to convince him otherwise. But then how does Mike McCarthy feel? Does he care?
I think that's probably the last thing Jerry cares about right now, because Jerry's still pissed about the way the season ended. And I don't think Mike McCarthy's going to get fired before next season. But I think Jerry is upset enough that he doesn't mind letting his coach hang there for a while, because he doesn't like the way that details were left. And this is one time where I can sort of side with Jerry on some things. People criticize Jerry and the way things are structured out there. But if you're going to criticize Jerry when they don't draft well and when they don't have a good roster because of him, I think you've got to give him some credit when they do. And every talent evaluator will tell you the Cowboys have a really talented roster, and Jerry is the guy who oversees all of that. So in his mind, he says, look, I got you this team, now coach them up, and you didn't do it. So I don't think he'll fire McCarthy right away. I think McCarthy has 1 year you better win a playoff game, at least one playoff game next year. It's an entirely different story.
Well, this could almost be the best, like a best case scenario, in the sense that when you look at Mike McCarthy, as we talked about last season was a wash because Dak was gone for the majority of it. This year, it was an utter disappointment. But, if he gives him 1 more year and he falls short and Sean Payton's doing TV, then that's like the perfect excuse to where, oh, hey, I gave you your shot, McCarthy. You underperformed again. We're bringing in Sean Payton. So then it's, I guess, maybe from an optics standpoint, if you were talking about being what is fair to Mike McCarthy and what isn't, then you check off the boxes, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, it's funny as we sit here and talk, I'm trying to think of reasons why Jerry would be concerned about keeping McCarthy. And his track record would say that Jerry never wants to admit that he was wrong about anything.
Yeah.
And that's why he would keep a coach for a long time. And I think sometimes he kept Garrett because of that. But that's why he insists, if you believe this, that Zeke continue to be featured in the offense even when Zeke can barely move his leg.
You're a big fan of Pollard. You've always said you're a huge fan of Pollard.
But in this case, I think Jerry's getting to be of an age where he's like, I don't have time to waste with this stuff. Either perform or don't. And if it meant McCarthy out after 2 years, I don't think he would necessarily hesitate to do that. So I'd be stunned if some conversations hadn't happened between Payton and the Cowboys.
And Sean Payton's still a fairly young guy, 58 years old. And
thanks for saying that.
But by his press conference, and he said it too, it sounds like he definitely wants to coach again. So, that nice little year window of getting to be on the other side of it, getting to be on TV, because he's certainly going to be good at that. It'll be interesting to see. We're going to take a break, Mike, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the utter disappointment that was the Cowboys season in 2021. Are you down for that?
Let's do it.
All right.
Tim Ryan here.
And I'm Lauren Prisball, here to remind you that good days here for you tomorrow morning with local news, weather, and traffic.
We have a lot of it. 6 hours to be exact.
What does that mean for you?
Traffic hotspots, constantly changing weather conditions, too.
So much going on here and all around the world. We'll bring you all of it.
No matter when you start your day, live and local, that's Good Day.
4 to 10 a.m. on Fox 4. See you in the morning.
The most watched local news sports team in North Texas.
I was going to say, everyone agrees with these rankings, right, Mike?
Mike Ducey, Sam Gannon, and Jeff Cole.
It's hard to be famous sometimes in this day and age.
I wouldn't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Talking sports and a whole lot more.
This is a tough question to answer. I'll let you go first.
Every night.
To say I'm impressed is an understatement.
Free for all. Nightly during Fox 4 News.
Much more to come here on Free for All tonight.
Here we go. All right, this is the Free for All after party. Sam Gannon.
Mike Ducey.
As always. All right, we just talked about Sean Payton. Obviously, there's always a big storyline going on here in Dallas as it pertains to the Cowboys, it seems like. But let's just revisit this season. I mean, you've covered this team for so long. Is this one of the most disappointing seasons that you've witnessed here, considering I know the expectations are always high here, and really for every team it's always going to be quote-unquote Super Bowl or bust. But going into this season, you were at training camp. It just seemed like, they had all the pieces. They were healthy. Health was not a question come the end of this season. COVID, there were a few instances of that. But all in all, if you were going to look at a team to say, hey, this could be their year, at least to get to the NFC Championship game, and you don't even win one game in the playoffs, I mean, just what do you think?
It seemed to be set up. There's no doubt. It's just I'm trying to think through the years. And it's getting to be a long list of disappointing years. Obviously, 26 without a Super Bowl now. And, you can think about the quote-unquote Cabo year where Romo and those guys went away during the bye week and then came back and lost the playoff game. That was a biggie.
I can't see that ever happening nowadays just because it's the way social media is.
No, believe me, since that very incident, I don't think it'll ever happen with one of these. I think what's ironic is I think Sean Payton has a place in Cabo.
Does he really?
He spends a lot of his time. Maybe that's what got him thinking about it way back when. But it was just hard. And I was wrong about this team. I was sure as hell wrong about that playoff game. I thought, even though it was just the NFC East, I thought we'd seen enough from this team to show that they could really be dominant with a big play defense, a takeaway defense, and an offense that at its best was really, really good too. But the offense just really sputtered as the season got later, and they didn't get enough big plays from the defense in that playoff game. It's just, I don't know. It was a bad loss, obviously, but then if you're Jerry, you're thinking, well, the team we lost to went and beat the team, the top seed.
And
so
see,
that's how he's justifying it.
To me, I would, if I'm like Dak or any of these guys, to me, I'm more pissed off that the 49ers are playing in the NFC Championship game, just from the rivalry standpoint, thinking that, man, did we shoot ourselves in the foot so bad again, as we've seen so many friggin' times with this team. And you almost wonder, too, because the first 6 weeks of the season, everything was on the up and up, right? And then defensively, Dan Quinn, big turnaround. Were we distracted at all by the glitz and the glam of this team at times? First 6 weeks of the season, it was the offense. And then you have these two studs on defense, Micah Parsons and then Trayvon Diggs, who every week for a while they were making these big plays. So was that almost distracting? I don't know. Maybe that, to me, it's just... there's so many things that went wrong in that 49ers game, and I guess when you talk about holding people accountable, Mike McCarthy or whatever, I mean, is this team soft? Like, is this team soft?
I think it's trendy right now to say it's undisciplined because of the penalties, and I do think you can lend some credence to that. I'm never sure how to judge that because for years the Raiders were famous for being the most penalized team in the league, like during their heyday, all the way back to the John Madden era. And you'll never convince me that officials don't call games differently game by game. Like the big playoff weekend, there weren't many penalties called. I don't know this for sure, but I guarantee you somebody in the league office got a hold of the officiating leaders and said, look, we don't want a ton of flags during these games. Let these guys play a little bit, because it was so ridiculous in that Cowboys game. But still, there were some pre-snap penalties that were just absurd, that showed a total lack of focus. But yeah, it was really disappointing, and I think Jerry's demeanor after the game and since then should worry Mike McCarthy. It should, just because of like what he has said on his radio show about how I'm not ready to, I don't know when I'll be ready to make these evaluations. Like, okay, he's just going to get madder and madder, and who knows what he's going to do.
And, you were at Mike McCarthy's end of the season press conference, too, and you asked him about the criticisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if he ever gets used to it. I did feel for him in that moment where at the end of there he was talking about, I do have a family, this and that. I mean, the way Mike McCarthy carries himself as he's the consummate professional, I'm sure no one, along with Dak and all these guys, wants to win more than him, especially because everyone can talk about the fact that he won at Green Bay, but the end of his time there didn't go so well, and, you just wonder what he's thinking now. And I do wonder what kind of command he has in the locker room. And when you talk about the two coordinators there, and when we talk to Drew Pearson in terms of who were they listening to, you wonder if Mike McCarthy kind of gets like he's like the middle child in that regard, where you kind of forget about him because everyone's talking about Dan Quinn because of the turnaround he had with this defense at the beginning of the season with Kellen Moore. Everything's great and dandy. Maybe at the end, not so much, but you do kind of wonder how he feels about the whole dynamic and structure within that franchise.
He did set himself up, or whoever determined that the structure was going to be this way, set him up for a situation where he only gets blamed. He doesn't very often get credit, just because, as you said, if the offense is good, it's Moore. If the defense is good, it's Quinn. If Randy Gregory jumps offside, it's not Quinn's fault, even though he's the defense coordinator. It's Mike McCarthy's fault because the team is undisciplined. Nobody said it was going to be fair. McCarthy gets paid a lot of money to be a head coach. Some viewer emailed me and said, look at how many times you ever see McCarthy having a conversation with Dak.
That's a good point.
And I couldn't think of any.
No, I never. I mean, and cameras are everywhere, and the cameras never miss anything during those games. By the way, is that what that's what you mean? Yeah. I can't think of one time.
Every relationship is different, and who knows? We don't see the meetings and all that stuff. If I were McCarthy, I'd want to call the plays on offense. And if Kellen Moore stays here, obviously that won't happen. But if I'm McCarthy and I'm going to go down with this ship no matter what, Parcells had a great line one time. He said, if I'm going to cook the dinner, I want to be able to buy the groceries.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way it is here. It's just, if you're going to judge me based on how this offense, for example, performs, and my expertise is on the offensive side, and I had success as a head coach calling the plays.
And why are you going to let it fall all on Kellen Moore? I would want to take over.
Even if it's still Moore as the offensive coordinator and the play caller, I'd be in his ear a hell of a lot more this coming year than I was last year.
And I know a lot can be made of
I'm cussing a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of like it's edgy.
Gotta get edgy.
we got to get a little edgy on this bad boy here. And I know a lot of it is made of, I don't know what Mike McCarthy's relationship personally is with Dak Prescott. I mean, throughout this whole season, I never got the sense that, Dak dislikes the guy, but I don't necessarily get the feeling either that he's the type of guy that he really wants to play for Mike McCarthy. And even when Sean Payton was talking about his relationship with Drew Brees, he's like, yeah, we liked each other, but we were also just on the same page. But I think something can be said for that as well, because the whole reason Mike McCarthy said he wanted to keep Kellen Moore on was because of his relationship with Dak. Right. So if I'm McCarthy too, I'm wanting to work on that a little bit more as well if he is in fact here. But it's just, and in terms of Dak, we talked about this with the quarterbacks that you have left in the playoffs. How do you judge Dak's career now? Six years in the league. I mean, how do you evaluate what he's done? I don't necessarily think we've talked enough about, well, we have in a sense, but I'm talking about now that the season's gone, what he had to overcome to get back to this point. I mean, he had a really severe injury that he had to battle back from, which who knows if every guy could come back from that? I don't know. Who knows if he's still maybe a little banged up? Maybe we'll never know. But how do you evaluate his 6 years, in the league with the Cowboys?
I think it's a lot like Romo at this point of his career. And that means not great, not horrible. It means a really impressive statistical quarterback, but one who hasn't had success in the playoffs to speak of. I think their playoff records are identical through this stage of their careers at 1 and 3. And it's said so often, but it is true that Dak, just as a guy and as a leader and as a professional, is so impressive.
Can't ask for anyone better than that.
But I do think he's gotten better for the most part as a quarterback. I think he regressed in the second half of this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And this is a cliche that I think ticks him off when he hears it, but there were just times he didn't seem to see the field very well, and I don't know why that is. I don't think Kellen Moore did him any favors. I see all these other offenses with just the quick throws that don't rely on every pass being perfect.
Yeah.
With receivers who get to the spot before the quarterback has to throw it and find him, as opposed to these timing things that just have to be precision, and you're asking your quarterback to do a lot. How much of that's on the receivers? How much of that's on the play caller? How much is on the quarterback? I don't know. But I think I responded to a guy who responded to me on Twitter because I had said that Dak was refusing to run.
Yeah.
And refuse is the wrong word. He is reluctant to run, I think, right now, in part of what he went through. But I think that's affected his game a lot, too. You watch Josh Allen, you realize what a weapon that can be when your quarterback can run the football. But I said in that response to that friendly tweeter,
tweet.
I think Dak is a really good quarterback who can still be a great one. And I do think he can lead your team to a championship. I do believe that.
And I want that for him, too, just simply because of the fact, like you mentioned, I think he's a great leader. He's already overcome so much. The onus is always going to be on him because he's the face of the franchise. But, let's be honest, the receivers didn't play up to their level, the offensive line. Why are you giving me that look like that? Is there something on my face?
No, you used the word onus.
Oh, did I say it wrong?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
But there's a it's a podcast. I could be edgy. There's a drop on the ticket where their weekend golf show.
Did they say anus?
Yeah, they do. The guy, one of the hosts he meant to say onus. He said anus. Yes. And Rick.
Yes, Rick Arnett.
Responds. Rick Arnett goes, the anus, and that's the drop that they use. So
shout out Rick Arnett for putting me on the cover of Avid Golfer, by the way.
Oh yeah, check out that. That's great.
What was I saying? No, I thought that there was something. I was like, what is on my face that Mike is giving me this weird thing?
The onus is on somebody.
The offensive line. Bottom line is they should have been way better than they were in that game, and there's really no excuse for it. And they have 21 unrestricted free agents too, so it'll be interesting to see what guys come back, who they lose. As Jerry mentioned, in the last few years, he didn't use the term specifically wasted talent, but he basically said we've wasted a lot of talent over. And he said he felt like if I needed to get rid of someone or whatever so that we could be better, I would do that. But I don't think we've seen the best version of Dak Prescott. I just don't. And when you compare him, to your point, with some of these other quarterbacks, Mahomes, Josh Allen, just the way they ushered those game-winning drives. I'm not sure Dak could have done that in that kind of game against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes right now.
Yeah.
Those teams, there's no confusion going on the sidelines, and they just execute the end.
I think when I look at Dak, he's just not a very instinctive player all the time. And he's not like he's exactly robotic. I don't know how to quite describe it. It's just he just doesn't seem to have the ability to improvise that some of these other guys do. And again, it's unfair to compare him to Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
But just to see the way those guys move within the pocket and buy time and all that stuff. At his best, Dak has done it and can do it. But to go back to the Romo comparison, the one thing I always admired about Romo And I always kind of had mixed feelings about him as a quarterback. In some ways, I thought he was overrated and just more of a stats guy than anything else. But one thing I always admired about him was he would always work on an aspect of his game to improve upon in the offseason. And it almost always provided, results. Mm-hmm. And I think Dak will do that as well.
Yeah.
I think as he continues in his career now, the guy is just a worker. He's a grinder. So he's watching tape all the time, I'm sure, and
he's still only 27. He's still
just maybe 28 now.
Yeah, he's still fairly young.
He'll get better. He still will, I think.
Well, it'll.
Hopefully, this podcast will get better too.
I mean,
although I thought that one was all right.
We're just getting going here, Mike, and that's going to about do it for
How's
our time
your sinuses?
today.
They doing all right?
Mike makes fun of me because he always knows when I went swimming because for whatever reason, whenever I swim at this outdoor pool, the chlorine, I don't know if you guys spent a long time, chlorine was actually a chemical used in World War II. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Let me make sure that's 100% right. I feel like my mom told me that, but I'm pretty sure it was.
The onus is on you to prove that.
Yeah. Anyways, it's like I can't stop sneezing. I'm just stuffed up all the time, but I got to keep going because I have this challenge that I'm trying to do. So
tell people what the challenge is.
Okay, the challenge is 100 miles in 100 days. So that doesn't mean I necessarily have to swim every day, but I have to get in 100 miles by the 100-day mark. So I think it's something like 14 to 16 weeks or something like that. So for people who maybe aren't as familiar with swimming or whatever, I basically have to swim 4 times a week and do about 4,000 yards like each practice.
Do you always swim freestyle when you swim?
No.
Butterfly?
I do butterfly. Yep,
okay.
That was always like my best stroke. I do breaststroke, backstroke.
Butterfly, man, that's the toughest one.
It's a tough one, and I haven't done a lot of butterfly because my shoulders and arms, they're hurting bad. Well, but you're a Mr. Walker. I mean, you walk 9 miles around that White Rock Lake.
Don't patronize me.
No, I'm not. I'm seriously not. I literally.
Oh, man, you go out and do a lot of walking. That's cute.
I literally couldn't.
You have orthotic shoes?
No, I couldn't go 9 miles around White Rock. First of all, I don't think I would have the patience to walk 9 miles around White Rock.
Yeah, I just put my AirPods in and listen to the Ticket.
The Ticket, your friends, your boys over at the Ticket, yeah.
Or I'll put my rock and roll playlist on from Spotify. And
a little T Swift.
Some tunage. I will always take photos, beautiful nature photos that I post on the gram.
I look forward to that. You've gotten more active on the gram. We'll get into some social media discussions as this. There's a lot to say on that.
That'd be good.
All right. Well, last thoughts, final closing thoughts? What do you got?
It's always football season here. Thank God Jerry keeps it interesting because we need something to talk about, and he always gives it to us. Thanks, Jerry. Love you.
All right. For MFD and Sammy the G, we're signing off. Good night. We'll see you next time.